Hi everyone, it's Alexa Tarantino, saxophonist and educator. I wish I could have been with you in person, but I'm happy to bring you this video courtesy of Tri-C Jazz Academy. So I'd like to dive right into what makes up my practice routines. I like to make sure that my practice routines are not too static. You know, I want to do something fresh every day. I don't want to be doing the same things every day, but I do want to make sure that I'm working all of the muscles and kind of avenues that I need to hit in a practice session. So for me, the most important elements for me to cover are long tones, overtones, scales, patterns, a tune or a couple of tunes, and then I'll kind of just do some fun sort of free playing. I could, really expand upon that a lot, but I'd say for you all, those are really great things to hit. So for long tones, you can see my earlier video with my 2 favorite long tone exercises, which I'll do for about 10 to 15 minutes every day. Each one of them can be 5-ish minutes. And that's just something super easy if you can just set your timer, knock it out as soon as possible to get yourself in shape for the day. One thing I want to add about my practice routines is I try really hard to take note of what I'm doing in a practice journal. So you don't need anything fancy, just find a composition notebook, find a spiral bound notebook, or if you have manuscript paper, that's fine too, but I prefer to actually write just on lined paper, write down the date, the times that I've been practicing, and I'll put down 10 a.m. to 10:10 a.m. ha-ta-tas, G through C mid-range. 10:10 to 10:20 a.m. whisper tones, middle F down to low B flat. Felt good, maybe a little muddy. I'll add some notes like that, and that way I can look back, and if I'm, if it's the next day and I'm looking at my exercises, I can say, okay, I did ha-ta-tas for long tones. Do I want to change it up? Do I want to stick with those today? What do I want to do? There are a few exercises in my wheelhouse that I do every day. The ha-ta-tas, without fail, I do every day. But maybe I'm looking at my overtones category and seeing what I've practiced there. And I like to make sure I have about 5 to 10 different exercises that I can do in each one of those categories so that I don't feel stale. Because I don't want to do the same exercise every day, like I said. So if I have 5 to 10 different overtone exercises, ideally those overtone exercises are all working little different muscles within the overtone category. They all will have a different strength that they're highlighting. So that's really fun and kind of exciting, a little nerdy for me, because I love to just make sure I'm getting the well-rounded practice session in. So long tones, overtones, scales. I like to practice all my scales full range up through my altissimo register. So for me, I generally go up to a high D all the way up top, and then I'll come back down. I also like to practice them with a bebop articulation or swung articulation, and I'll often practice my bebop scales around the circle of fourths. Like that. And that's a really good way to keep your articulation up. Just making sure you're super steady at a slower tempo and work that articulation up with a metronome to make sure it's very smooth, not too choppy, and that it really has that swing eighth feel. So scales are a great way to maintain evenness through all of your registers. Make sure your intonation is in check. Make sure your articulation is in check. And then for patterns, I'll do many different things. I'll do diatonic patterns like that type of a thing. Or maybe I'll practice that all in one key, or several different diatonic patterns in one key, so that was C. So maybe I'll do a few different patterns in C, or maybe I'll just do the same pattern and do it in different keys. Right? And do it in a few different keys just to get that particular shape under my fingers. And then another thing that I like to do in this pattern category is work with something called cells, which are like a small grouping of 3 or 4, maybe 5 notes. And so what I'll do is I'll pick a group of notes, let's say Okay, those are the notes that I picked. And then I'll take that through all of the registers on my instrument. And I'll just kind of mess around doing a cadenza with that shape or cell and go through all the registers. And especially if you can do things all the way up top to keep your intonation in check and your altissimo register, if you're up there, that's awesome. So that's, you can pick 3 notes even. And that was just a little major arpeggio right there. So you can change it up by day, and that helps to keep things fresh. So that's long tones, overtones, scales, patterns, and I love to pick a tune. I'll usually play like a Great American Songbook tune or a jazz standard or a jazz original that's very popular. Could be something like a blues, rhythm changes, AABA, it could be a bird tune, it could be a Wayne Shorter tune. And with those, I like to make sure that I'm listening to the definitive recording, that like the version, that composer or artist kind of made first, and make sure I'm understanding the melody and can play it, learned it by ear, learn as much of the chord changes and the bass line as much as I can by ear, and then start to pick away at improvising over the chord changes. And if it's a tune I already know, maybe I'll do it in many keys. Maybe I'll play a blues in 12 keys, rhythm changes in 12 keys, bird tune in 12 keys. And then after that, I would just say working on tunes and picking out some little vocabulary from Charlie Parker's solo and taking a little nugget of that information and working it in all 12 keys. That is just invaluable practice. And while you have the time now, I encourage you to practice as much as you can. Really keep track of it, write it in that practice journal. I hope that hearing a little bit about my routine helps you, and please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. Happy practicing! Thank you, Tri-C Jazz Academy.